How you doing?
Doing all right. For some
All
reason.
right. So that happened to me last time. I tried to use like my headset, and for the life of me, I couldn't get it to work. And I was just like, "Well, I just got to talk to the
Yeah,
camera here."
that's just what we'll do.
Man. Yeah. So I guess just to give a little bit of a background. So me and you actually met prior to me being in this role because at some point I wanted to open up MovNat Miami, and how did I find out about you? First off, Shelby was like a somebody who talked about you, how much you influenced her, and some of the stuff. And then I saw a lot of your stuff with the equipment. Then I saw your video, MovNat,
Yeah.
natural movement for your bodies. And
Mm.
from a consumer standpoint, you always stood out as somebody who could produce some really cool quality content and somebody who obviously had a lot of experience in the field. And then I was thinking about opening up MovNat Miami. I think, I don't know if you remember the date, probably like 2022, 2021, something like that. I can't remember
Yeah.
when. And I
Yeah.
reached out, and in full transparency, you were like, don't do it, and we know the reason why, right? And we know that during that time period, there was definitely some administrative issues that,
Yeah.
what happened? Yeah, so there was definitely some kind of like administrative issues that we were trying to address, and that we're trying to currently address now. And now that I'm in the role, you're somebody I thought about immediately as like, hey, would you be willing to come back and support the mission? Because I know you've always been passionate about this, and it's evident in everything that you do and everything you produce. And I knew you'd be super into it because we have the exact same name. It's even spelled the same. So I knew for sure you were chosen to
Yeah.
be. So with that
Yeah.
introduction, you know, if people didn't know, we both are named Brian, but you're just called The Rock for obvious reasons. So that's
Yeah. I
my
mean,
introduction
yeah.
to our relationship, and I'm excited to bring you back.
I'm excited to be back, and thank you, Brian. Yes, Brian's with an I are always correct in how we spell our name. If your name has a Y, you should ask, why is your name spelled wrong? And we'll just leave that there.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I agree.
Yeah, so, MoveNat is I love MovNat. It's I came across Irwan and Gray Cook's DVD series like 2009, somewhere back then. Like so, it seems like forever ago because that was before I had children and I was still in college. So that seems like a whole lifetime ago. And when I finally got the chance to move with Kellen Malad as my team instructor in Minneapolis, I don't know, it feels like over a decade ago. So it might be about a decade. I finally felt like MoveNet was for me. Otherwise, I'd just been like lurking on it forever. And so when the opportunity to like be invited to join the team as a team instructor, teach certifications, I was like, oh, this can be awesome. I was already an affiliate. And then, COVID was rough, all these things. And then kind of feeling as though like the efforts I was giving weren't necessarily being well received. I was like, after shutting down the affiliate, MoveNet Madison, right? I decided to just like take a hiatus from, MoveNet HQ, but I also took a hiatus from life. My family, we sold our house in Madison and then lived on the road for a little over a year, just volunteering on farms and trying to figure out what was what, trying to make sense of life. So, because post COVID, a lot of people needed some space and time, and we just decided to burn the ships and find that space and time. So it's not like I was, angry at MoveNet for just doing what they were doing, but I just needed some time and space. And, I still love natural movement, and I'm looking forward to rekindling the relationship with MoveNat and, seeing what I could bring to the table again. And the
Yeah,
community, really.
I already know
Yeah.
what you can bring to the table, and I know it's a lot based on any previous conversation. I feel like me and you have a lot of alignment on a lot of things. I've mentioned things, and you were like, Brian, I've
Yeah.
literally said that like 1,000 times. So it's like we're already kind of in the same wavelength, in the same direction that we're trying to push. I mean, when I mentioned the Move That Games to you, you were like, obvious, right?
Yeah.
Also, some of the stuff that you want to enhance and Move That in general, right? Women's health is something that you're very passionate about, and you've talked about like the pre and postnatal stuff, and you're going to be releasing an article on that on MovNat pretty soon. So I'm
Yeah.
excited for people to see. I'm really just excited for people to see everything you can bring to the table and how much you can spread MovNat when there's no no restriction in front, right? And that's really the ideal kind of thing that I'm looking for.
Yeah. No, and that's a huge thing. You know, that was one of the things I kind of just stuck in my craw as I was trying to get, you know, my wife and I, we co-wrote this blog post together about, you know, MovNat specifically, and how the methodology helped her postpartum with two kids, and then the fitness in between and all that other stuff. And you know, I've seen dozens and dozens of women through the affiliate, through my own practice, and then just, you know, getting referrals from other team instructors here and there, like women having a hard time with the foot pinch. And so, you know, it's this blog post I really wanted to push out before I walked away, and it never stuck for whatever reason. Is what it is. It's in the past.
Yeah, in the
But
past.
you know, we highlighted how, you know, my wife basically credited her recovery post both children with, you know, leveraging my knowledge and expertise, obviously, um, but creating an environment and adopting a lot of the MovNat principles and methodology just into her personal practice. And she did L1 with John Morey at 7 months post, or 7 months pregnant with our second. And so technically, John jokingly gave our youngest fourth, he gave him a cert because he, you know, he was in utero and he passed because Annie passed her L1.
Yeah.
And you know, she talked about being 7 months pregnant with her second, and you know, had she not maintained a level of fitness, she wouldn't have been able to do like pass L1 outright, right? Like it was, she had to be capable. And you know, but then she also learned that you can get SPD, it's like symphysis pubic disorder, right? So she actually stressed that pubic symphysis a little bit, with the foot pinch.
Yeah, because the relaxin hormones that are
Yeah,
secreted, you have to have excess.
exactly, the relaxin. And so it made like sidelight nursing and stuff like that a little uncomfortable postpartum. But you know, we also learned, okay, like you can push too far. And like that's sometimes I think what people forget is what is that balance of health and fitness, right? Physical activity is important. And she was like, was it worth chasing that cert? Maybe, I don't know. But she goes into details on all that in her share of the blog post. So stay tuned for that. It's two perspectives, right? So me as the coach and trainer, and then her as the mom of two babies. So I'm looking forward to putting that out there with a lot of good videos to help women who are pregnant or postpartum, regardless of how far postpartum, because we know, especially those of us in that like women's health world, that it's never too late. And I'm just happy that more and more people are getting the knowledge and the care they deserve kind of in that postpartum world. It's been kind of like a crapshoot for a really long time. And, you know, for the longest time, I think if any of the recommendations were anything, it was just do Kegels. Just do Kegels. You'll be fine. Just do Kegels. And that's
Even
just a
the
very
guidelines were a
small
little heavy.
part of the problem. What was that?
Even the ACOG guidelines for a while were a little nebulous, right? Like they took a while before they kind of got a little updated. You know, before it was like you can't get your heart rate up to a certain point, you know, you're gonna die. And now it's like, oh well, it depends on what your activity level was prior, right? If you didn't
Yeah.
do a thing for
Yeah.
years and now you're pregnant and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I want to be an athlete, that's probably a terrible idea. But if
Yeah.
you've
No.
been so for instance, like I work with I'm fortunate enough to work with Angelica Delgado, who's represented us in the last three Olympics for judo, and
Yeah.
she's currently going through pregnancy right now. And
Okay.
where
Yeah.
having the disconnect is for her to recognize you're not going to compete in the Olympics anymore, right? Like right now, your goal is to give birth in
Yeah.
October, so it's her recognizing that you know we're in this third trimester and we need to start dialing it back a little bit, and you know there's no more of the high intensity stuff. She's like so surprised about the changes that her body's going through because it's her first pregnancy, you know, things that she would have scoffed at, not even broken a sweat at. She's,
Yeah.
you know, really feeling it. So yeah, I think it's something that needs more attention for sure.
It does, and it's one of those things. You know, there's a lot of, because you know we're in this industry, right? So there's always battling what are the trends or the demands, and you know, kind of having trained women almost exclusively for as long as I have, you know, they get a lot of messaging, and like one of the worst ones right out there kind of in recent history is the get your body back. And on the surface, it's like, oh yeah, get your body back. Your body's yours again. But what it really is like, no, get that like beach body 6-pack. And it totally is just so focused on aesthetics. And for some women, like for all women, like you have a birthing body, your body grew a human and it is forever changed, right? Like your literal physical structures change. Your feet get bigger, your hips change. And, you could have, depending on how well pregnancy and birth went, right? Like you could have tearing, uh, variations of severity of diastasis recti or DR, right? And so, this whole notion of getting your body back is really this unfortunate message a lot of women receive. And then, they're getting caught in those traps that the fitness influencers have always put out there. Like, oh, you just got to do tons of sit-ups to get your six-pack back. But we know that's not necessarily what's going to work. And it starts to, under the guise of health and wellness, to just start to negatively impact people. And so I'm hoping that we can get some really good, solid education materials out there to incorporate women's health and natural movement fully with some of these new upcoming features that we'll talk about as they come to fruition. So
Yeah. I think like that plague is not only specific to postpartum. I think it's specific to all of health and fitness, right? As an industry, like the focus is on the aesthetics and not necessarily the quality of movement. I just started doing a thing on like looking at movement as exactly what it is. It's a behavior designed to solve a task, and there's always this emphasis on strength and hypertrophy and power. And like, people like to call out people and say, oh, well, that person's not strong. And it's like, strength is relative to the individual because everybody's in a different journey of their own well-being and their own movement competency and their own control over themselves. So
yeah,
who are you to say whether somebody's weak or strong? My point is that everybody has the opportunity and ability to get stronger. So if you're lifting 20 pounds today and 30 pounds next week, that's an improvement. That's what the focus should be on, not, hey, can you bench or squat 1.5 times your body weight? Because some of those people who can bench or squat 3 or 4 times their body weight can barely get off the ground, So it's like, what's your point? The movement, like
yeah,
all these metrics, strength, power, hypertrophy, speed, endurance, strength endurance are all a result of the practice of movement, right? Not
yeah,
the other way around, right?
yeah. And so much gets lost in like an argument for the generalist approach, which MovNat, I don't think there's a better methodology for a generalist approach to human movement. So I used to work for the Marine Corps, and the gym I worked at in Quantico, Virginia, Ronnie Coleman was like the spokesperson kind of for hammer strength at one point in time. And he came to do like a demo in the gym as it opened up. And he had to take the elevator up one flight of stairs. Now, Ronnie Coleman, like, 16-year-old me would like shit the bed if like Ronnie Coleman was in the gym, right? And like I got to see him move, right? Um, but he couldn't walk up one flight of stairs. Like he was a phenomenal specimen as it related to bodybuilding and a super strong bodybuilder, right? Like one of the strongest bodybuilders of all time. But he couldn't walk up one flight of stairs, right? And he was focused really hard on specificity in one context, right? And so one of the things that I love about, MovNat and coming back is like we need to be the voice of like, hey, humans are generalists first. Are you moderately successful at multiple domains? And then you could start to focus on specificity. And, like, because it's not just one thing. Strength is relative, but so is endurance, so is mobility. And having a well-rounded approach to that, I think, is ultimately going to serve people better in the long run,
Yeah.
And especially
I
like, yeah, go ahead.
No, I 100% agree. I mean, for me, it's always like, I like to approach it like a two-prong. What does my student, participant, or client want to learn? Like, what is their
Mm-hmm.
aspirational goal from a skill perspective? And then
Yeah.
what's their level of movement competence? And our goal is to kind of just bridge the two and show them, regardless of fear, apprehension, or how confident they are, regardless, we're just there to kind of guide them in their movement journey and help them get to where they need to get to. And that's always been like the most powerful thing about this, right? Because it's not rocket science. And I think that's the lack of appeal for MovNat, right? It's almost too simple to, and it's so easy and so simple that
Yeah.
people are like,
Yeah.
well, that's not going to work, you know, because you need to, now everything is almost like a gimmick, you know, it's like, hey, I need to cover my left nostril, create irrigation strength in my left fat toe, squeeze my right glute, hold a cable column, and, you
Yeah.
know, mantra in order for me to gain anything. Oh, I apologize. I'll try and speak a little bit slower for you. So that's just always kind of been the challenge, right? MovNat is almost like it's so simple of an approach that people almost don't realize that it works so well.
You know, and it's so funny that people can't accept simplicity because we're, especially I'll say US and slash Western cultures, we're so inundated by advertising and consumption of things and services and goods that we forget that like simplicity works. And, you know, people inevitably, when they find out I do fitness, they're like, so how do I start getting stronger? I was like, can you get up and down up off the ground? Relatively easy. They're like, no. I was like, well, start there. Like, what do you mean? Well, 8 times in the morning, 8 times at lunch, and 8 times before bed, get up and down up off the ground. If you can use less hands, then do it. And they're like, it's not that easy. And I was like, why is it not that easy? Literally getting up and down up off the ground is defying gravity. If you weigh 200 pounds, you're exerting force to lift 200 pounds up off the ground to standing. Like that's effort. And if you could do that easily, then you deserve to add load, right? Because you've earned that load. But people are just like, no, it's got to be harder than that, right? The burn boot camp people, the F45 people, they say it's got to be harder. It can't be that easy, right? But you know, that's because we need people to be hooked and to consume our
Yeah.
content and
And
goods.
and there's also like this weird misconception, like some of the stuff you're gonna do is not hard, right? Like
Yeah.
people forget, like we sprint, we vault, we jump, we do muscle ups and power ups and stuff like that. But going back to your get up, I think I'm actually I just finished an article on that, and I just finished filming some content. Shout out to Nonstop Physical Therapy, Dr. Mario Valdez. We just spoke. I'll give you the grand summary of this real quick because it hasn't come out yet, but it's essentially using the get up as an assessment tool, right? Because a lot of people use physical therapy screens to kind of determine their quote unquote participants' movement quality or competency or trying to spot dysfunction, but you forget that all those screens are designed to find somebody who has an injury and you're trying to reverse engineer. And generally, the pattern is in such isolation that you don't get to see it in what it's designed for, right? So a get up is a problem, right? The problem is I need to stand up. So your get ups are your solutions. And essentially, what ends up occurring is you're seeing your participants and your students' ability to solve the problem in different
Yeah.
ways. So you're looking for as much variety. And then second, you see what they bias. And if they're biasing a specific pattern, that means they're avoiding a different pattern, which means they don't have a lot of the right? They don't have a lot of solutions to standing up. And from there, you have a better gauge as to what you should be focusing on as a coach in terms of working with your participant from the lowest level of competency. So we're doing an article, we filmed a video, and we filmed it even with like, hey, if you are a physical therapist, here are some, you know, mobilizations of the ankle or the hip that you can use. And then we show some basic like natural movement approaches to kind of getting into the same solution without having to mobilize a joint or put your hands on somebody and just using your own body to get there. But 100% right,
Yeah.
like people don't realize like you can't even get off the floor. I literally was at a physical therapy office yesterday, and there was a guy who had a pretty traumatic back injury that he suffered in 2022. Actually, his first traumatic back injury was in 2019, and then he had a relapse in 2022. And he happened to be in the clinic yesterday, and I was talking about this with Dr. Valdez, and he got on the floor and he could only get up one way, and it was a
Yeah.
split squat variation, and he had to get to kind of like that figure four, but like one of these like wide open figure fours, and then get the hand up to try and finish the get. And I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, you probably box jump, back squat, deadlift, and do a bunch of crazy things. But the foundational thing that all human beings should be capable of, getting up off the floor, because it covers everything from seated to transitioning patterns to
Yeah.
everything. You can't even do that effectively. So not to say that you can't do those other things, but
Mm-hmm.
this should really be the focus of what you should be working on, right? Your ability to solve the problem of standing up. So Those are just
Yeah.
my thoughts on that topic.
You know, and it's so funny because like I think about all the natural movement people right now, right? From like us to functional patterns, where we're all talking roughly in and around motor development, right? And you know how many problems can be addressed by, you know, resetting the brain and the body and just getting people on the ground again, right? And it's just so funny because like it's not new, right? And it's literally like what we all did to go from infancy to toddlerdom in wanting to explore our world. Like we had to figure out if I wanted to get on top of the fridge and get cookies as a little kid, I had to figure out how to do that. And we've just, I don't know if we've lost the curiosity as adults in what it means to move and explore. Um, but you know, it was once there, and like that's exactly what movement can do for us is unlock potential and freedom. And we've just, you know, revisiting again simple things like getting up and done up off the ground can transition to a whole lot of things for a whole lot of people. Just to hammer that home one more
Yeah, yeah,
time.
definitely. I mean, like
Yeah.
you said, it's motor learning, right, to an extent, and I think that's like the kind of the biggest thing that people forget. Like we seem to think that we're in a world of health and fitness and performance when we're really in a world of motor learning and skill acquisition. And that should be the most important thing because everything else is a result of you doing that. You know, so it's like the recent like Peter Attia podcast where it was like some lady talking about like toe strength is the one of the biggest indicators of all cause mortality. Just like getting up without the use of your hands or grip
Mm-hmm.
strength. There's 1,000 of them that are the greatest cause of all cause mortality. But when you
Yeah.
look at trying to explain what it is, grip strength. Well, how do you get your grip stronger? By lifting heavy things. Toe
Yeah.
strength. How do you get your toe stronger? Balance, being barefoot, right? Using your feet
Yeah.
without too much sensory deprivation, right?
Yeah.
Get off the floor without the use of your hands is one of the greatest indicators of all cause mortality. How do you work on that? Well, you just get up off the floor, you know? So it's just so interesting that all these scientists are, you know, pointing at these things, not realizing that the solution is natural. It just exists in front of you. It is the way I explain it is music theory. You know, like
Okay.
music theory is the attempt at trying to explain what music is, right? The
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
power of music. But music theory is not necessarily used to write music. It's us trying to interpret what music is. That's the
Yeah.
same thing as exercise sciences, right? Exercise science is an attempt at trying to describe the marvel that is our biology, our physiology, and our just evolution and our ability to just do what we do, humanity, right? It's an
Yeah.
attempt at trying to describe a little tenth of it. And it's kind of makes me chuckle a little bit. Um, but yeah, it's definitely really cool. But getting back to you, I mean, I'm super
Yeah.
excited to have you on the team. You talked
Mm-hmm.
to me about the projects that you tried to get off the ground, and we'll leave it in the past, but they're going to be getting off the ground now. So I'm very excited to have those things come out in the future. We'll talk about all of them. I know we discussed the article. One thing also you mentioned was a train the trainer program, right? Like a mentorship kind of deal. So that might be
Mm-hmm.
something that which I'm very passionate about because I know one
Yeah.
of the biggest issues is you know, mentorship and entrepreneurship in this field. You know, if you don't have good people around you or people who can help guide you in the right direction, you're gonna
Yeah.
struggle.
You know, and I think about, you know, I did a train the trainer program. I was on the HIT advisory committee at my time as a civilian with the Marine Corps. And then, you know, witnessing the success of CrossFit and how they developed their affiliate system, you know, like you went and got your, you know, your L1, your L2 in a weekend, boom, you were opening them a box the very next Monday, right? And so I think, you know, MovNat could learn a lot from that world. And if we really want people to engage, like having had one of the only affiliates in North America that was branded MovNat, that had all the cool equipment, people like, oh, finally a place where I could do this, like a culture of people where this is socially acceptable. You know, if we really want to have that impact, like nurturing affiliates or individuals who want to follow and lead, right? Like we have to be able to do that. And people leave jobs all the time because they want to follow passions, and fitness seems to be one of those big ones where people are like, I'm going to leave my comfortable 9 to 5 and open up a gym or become a personal trainer. But they're like, how do I do that? Right. And then there's like, well, you got to figure it out. And, you know, then you're there's all those predatory like marketing guys who are like, we'll give you 1,000 clients in 2 months, you know, drive your online sales. And that's all super predatory as well.
Yeah.
So, but having those people who are like, no, we want all of you to succeed because then we all succeed together. And, you know, being able to curate and create opportunities for people to develop themselves as coaches and entrepreneurs, I think will be huge. And I'm looking forward to being a part of that. So,
Yeah, I agree. I got certified in 2020. Prior to becoming the director, I was always viewing MovNat from a consumer side. And one of
yeah.
the things I saw was I felt like there was a lack of community and a lack of an ability to speak to somebody without, you know, somebody wanting something in return, right? In that
Mm-hmm.
kind of like previous era. And I really want to come from a place of sincerity and transparency when it's like, hey, the more natural movement is spread out, really the goal is to make as many people as you can capable, right? And we
Yeah.
need to stop putting things in the way of giving somebody the opportunity to do that. And one of those big things is obviously we're a company and we're an organization and we need to be compensated, but how
Yeah.
much do we need to be compensated, right? Because the more we try and get compensated, the less capable the audience and the community is of being able to do the mission. So you need to
Yeah.
find that weird happy balance, and that's kind of the struggle of being in the position I'm in. But I think we have a really good idea of just, you know, having to have conversations directly with the community and give them an
Yeah.
opportunity to be successful and point them in the direction to be successful, make the connections, highlight them, market
Yeah.
for them, give them every opportunity to excel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that alone will help us grow, you know?
Yeah, and you know, I think about when MovNat approached me to do the blog post about bigger bodies, how many people reached out to me, direct messages on Instagram or Facebook, just saying, hey, thanks, I finally feel natural movements for me, which is funny, like, but not funny because one of the guiding principles for MovNat is universal, right? And so, in, you know, on paper, right, it's like, oh yeah, MovNat's for everybody, natural movements for everybody, but there are still people who don't feel in the consumer community, who feel MovNat is for them. I mean, I was one of those people as well, and you can look back at some of the blog posts I've done for MovNat, and I talk about that. And so, you know, every day there are still people like, is it for me? And the more representation we can get out there, the better it'll be for all. And then again, if we're a mission oriented organization as it relates to movement, health, and fitness, like we just need more people to buy into that and spread it, right? And we can't just like, oh, who are the cool kids, right? Because then we're just no better than any other influencer or, you know, garbage methodology on the internet. So
No, you're 100% right. And you're like one of those perfect examples. So I don't know if you watch soccer, but I believe it was like the 1998 World Cup. Ronaldo came into the World Cup. It was either 1998 or 2002. I'm not 100% sure the year. But Ronaldo, right, from Brazil, like one of the top
yeah,
players in the world,
yeah,
he came heavy. He was like overweight, like 15, 20 pounds overweight. And
yeah,
everyone was concerned that he wasn't going to be able to compete
mm-hmm.
and play, and he was going to gas early, and he was going to do this. And he ended up breaking like a scoring record that World Cup. I think one game he
Yeah,
scored like 4 or 5 goals, like something insane. And it's like the
yeah,
perfect indicator that your your anthropometrics, right? Your appearance, your aesthetics has nothing to do with performance. You know, from
yeah,
a from a personal perspective, you know, I was doing MMA and I was like 148 pounds, 8% body fat, like ripped and lean, and I felt like I was striking and punching, and I felt like a little baby lion, you know. And my
yeah,
striking pulls aside like a guy who's overweight, has a mullet, is in like a tank top, you know,
mm,
the tank top doesn't quite fit, his guts hanging out the bottom, and my striking coach goes to me, hey, I want you to go 3 rounds with this guy. We're gonna do 3 minute rounds. You know, make sure you work him. And in my head, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna crush this guy. This guy
yeah,
has worked my ass. You know, and I'm looking at this guy like, man, how are you not tired? And he looked out of
yeah,
shape, but he wasn't out of
yeah,
shape. It's like it's a real big wake up call for people to understand. Like what you look like is not necessarily how physically capable you are. And I mean, you're a big guy. You're not a small guy by any means, and you are incredibly capable. I mean, you can climb, you can lift the shit out of something, you can
yeah,
balance, you know, and
yeah.
you're
Appreciate that.
respected. You know? So
You
a
know,
lot
that,
of people don't understand.
yeah, I struggle sometimes with that because I was like, oh, if I was a little bit lighter, I could maybe run a little bit further and faster. But like, do I need to run faster than a 27 5K at over 220 pounds, right? I'm like 222 right now, but I can run a 26, 27 5K. Like, that's pretty good. I'm 42. Like, that's not bad. And I only run 1 to 2 times a week for training. And so I'm like, yeah, but if I get too small, then it's harder for me to kick a door down because at the end of the day, physics is physics. And the more mass you have, the more force you can impart on an object. So I always tell people, like, if you want to be a door kicker, it helps to have a big ass, right? If you want to climb trees, it helps to be smaller because gravity has less of an effect on you. And like, that's something that, I feel we don't talk about enough in the context of like normal people. Like, oh, but like, yeah, offensive linemen in the NFL, of course they have to be that big, right? They're offensive linemen. And in the other world, it's like everybody needs to be like small and petite and thin and like, under 180 pounds. But like, yeah, if I want to be this, but if I want to, be a strong man, like it helps to be 6 foot something and over 300 pounds. Like if we
Yeah,
look at the most successful strongmen, they're not tiny people, right?
yeah, all about
And
affordability.
yeah, and we could stand to let the general public know that like your physical body type has certain benefits and maybe you should focus on those, right? If you're a bigger body, you get to pick heavy stuff up and make it look easy, right? And you have like a different stamina. Yeah, you're never going to be as fast as a Kenyan, but like let's look at the Kenyans. They all look alike, right?
Yeah. No, there's another thing too. Like, have you
Yeah.
seen like big dudes who can like front flip, back flip, sumo wrestlers. I think they're sumo wrestlers who do backflips, right?
Yeah,
It's just you becoming capable with what you're bringing to the table with your body. Because at the end of the day, you're making the decision as to what you want to do, right? You want to
exactly.
eat, you want to lose weight, lose weight. If you want to get bigger, right? At the end of the day, it's what you choose to do with yourself. The point is
Mm-hmm.
that nobody should be telling you what you should look like, how you should perform, how you should do this, because it's your journey. Like it's up to
Yeah,
nobody to tell you what or how or when and what, right? It's all up to you as a
exactly.
unique personal individual. But it's definitely it always makes me chuckle and laugh. We have a guy at my jiu-jitsu academy called Big, and Big is, I don't know, like 23 years old, but he's very kind of like doughy. He's a big guy. He's very
Yeah,
sweet, very nice. He's kind of got like a baby face. And we'll
yeah.
have guys that come off the street that look like, bodybuilders, and they're massive and they're jacked and they're huge. And they look at him and they're immediately like, oh, I'm going to crush this guy. And he's just ragdolling them across the gym, just like
Yeah,
double legging him, picking him up, dropping him. He can do
yeah,
cartwheel passes. He's so nimble for his size. I always joke, I'm like, you roll like you're a little guy. And he's a big dude. Gotta be like 215, 220, and he's just doing all kinds of crazy stuff. It's always pretty cool to see all that stuff. So I
funny.
think this is gonna be great, with you back on the team and you producing content and getting all the stuff that should have been off the ground years ago off the ground now. I think it's gonna be really impactful for the community and give them a lot of opportunity, because not only from a visual standpoint, it's what the education opportunities are for people, right?
Yeah,
And that's what I'm excited most, right? You having a bigger a bigger outreach to be able to help others succeed in this, and that's what I think it all gets down to, right? It's how much
yeah,
can we influence and impact others to spread this thing of capability, right, for other people, or accessing capability for other people.
yeah. No, exactly, and that's just it, right? Like, um, yeah, just people need the access, people need the encouragement, and like everyone deserves a shot at having a physical practice as it relates to their values and helps them be strong to be helpful, right? Like just did this kids camp last week, like a fitness-based kids camp, and I asked the kids, what does movement mean? And they're like running, jumping, swimming, and I had them do some drills of like, all right, go pick up a leaf, and they're like, yeah, I just grabbed a leaf, and I was like, now put your hands behind your back and wrap your legs around each other, and now go pick up a leaf, and they're like, well, I can't do it. I was like, well, if you had to, you'd figure out how to do it, right? Because movement is freedom. And when we have confidence in our competence, we tend to feel more free, right? And there are too many people in the general population world. You know, I've seen them, I've had them as clients. You hear their stories. They don't feel freedom and movement and health is for them. Like they're stuck in that like chronic pain cycle, that chronic illness cycle, and they're just like, well, I guess this is just my life, right? And that's no place to be. So we need to help shake that mindset out of the general public and like, you know, hey, movement is for you. You deserve to move, right? So
There's nothing worse than being a prisoner in your own body, right? Whether from a mental capacity or from a physical capacity, right? It can be pretty debilitating for somebody. And well, you can't separate the two, right? If you're physically debilitated and it's impacted your character and your livelihood and your social interactions and all that, it definitely impacts. And nobody wants to talk about that, but that definitely is a reality, right? And
yeah,
um, there's some stuff there that we're working on behind the scenes. So I actually met with, can't really talk about it too much, but I met with the head of a very large medical organization that focuses on um, brain trauma, right? So traumatic brain injuries,
yeah,
amputations, paralysis, like the most extreme of cases that require rehabilitation. And he reached out to me asking, how can MovNat get involved? So that's
mm,
currently being investigated. And it might be from a perspective of us getting access to the highest level of education related to brain traumatic injuries and being
oh,
able to
cool,
for MCTs, and then
yeah,
you get a badge. Like I'm a level 1 certified guy, but I know brain injuries, traumatic brain injuries, and then you can become a essentially a safe place of referral because
yeah,
they can't manage everybody all the time, but they can work with somebody for 3 months and then they need a handoff point. So it's another extension of our mission of giving everybody the ability to move. And that's something that I'll be really excited to bring out once it's completely unveiled. So there's definitely like a lot of things coming down the pipe.
that's
Rob,
exciting.
any other things you want to share with anybody? I know you got, your day ahead of you, and I got plenty of stuff to catch up to here for MovNat. Anything else you want to share?
Building your own house under the guidance of a builder is very rewarding and challenging. Like I think about if I wasn't as fit as I was, how hard that task would be, right? Like I don't know if I'd be able to pull 10-hour days of like heavy labor construction, um, walking up, 12-foot ladders with, 14-foot 2x12s, right? Like it's super fun and eye-opening and rewarding to like, oh, this is why I train. I finally get to do this, right? So yeah, we're currently building some buildings on some new to us land, 40 acres in the driftless area of Wisconsin, and I get to put my physical practice into practice day in and day out, and that's been just really fun to do. So I'll leave it
Yeah,
there.
I'm excited for the potential of you having a giant playground in the background where we can host some pretty crazy L1s, L2s, and maybe even an L3 in the future. So I'm excited
Yeah,
about that.
yeah, yeah. Stay tuned. It's coming. It'll be great. So,
All right, and then my final question, I think
mm,
we touched on it a little bit, but what was the biggest deciding factor for you to get back to the fold and join MoveNet again?
I would say, the conversation with you, Brian, about the community, right? Like the community of consumers, they didn't do anything wrong, right? And they're looking for solid, sound advice. And if I believe in a methodology or a mission enough, like that should be all that matters. And so that conversation you and I had about like we need to heal, we need to move past like previous issues, and the community of consumers deserves to have a solid, sound voice of integrity. Um, it's ultimately for them, right? It's for the people who want to consume MoveNat content and methodology, and the people who represent it. It's really that, right? Like that's why I came back. Like just it's about something greater than myself. So
Awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, Rock, it was Hafa, how you doing? It was a pleasure speaking to you. It was a pleasure catching up. I believe this is
Yeah,
our first time having a face-to-face, although distance-wise, and we're both got phenomenal haircuts.
we do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Two bald Brian's crazy. All
Yeah.
right, well,
Yeah.
Rock, it was a pleasure catching up
Thank
with
you.
you. I
Yeah.
really look forward to everything that's going to be coming down the pipe, and we're going to get that article published, and then me and you will be having some meetings to kind of discuss, potential big time, potential future projects. I hope you have a wonderful day. I'm glad you're doing good. I'm glad you're feeling better, and good luck with the house.
Thank you. Thank you.
Take care, Brian. Bye,
Yeah.
everybody.
Take care. Bye.